What's your goal with real estate? I know we hear often, get real estate, have all this passive income coming in, and quit your job so you can be financially free. And then what? How are you actually going to be spending your days? It sounds good until you're bored and trying to figure out what to do because everybody else is at work. Listen as this investor talks about his experience in the peaks and flows of his real estate investing journey and how he hit a home run on the first time with a triplex for $60,000. Not only does he still have that triplex, but he's also used that same money to purchase 2 more properties. You don't want to miss this episode of the Aid to Assets podcast. Welcome to the Aid to Assets podcast, the ultimate podcast for aspiring real estate investors. I'm your host, Tiffany Watson. Join me as we discuss real estate investing for 9-to-5ers. We'll talk about everything from money mindsets and property ownership and different strategies you can use to invest in real estate. I want to empower investors, especially those of us who are working full-time, who want to navigate the world of real estate, uncover the secrets to building wealth, generate passive income to achieve financial freedom. Equip yourself with resources from experts, practical tips, and step-by-step guides on how to kickstart your real estate journey. We'll also hear from 9-to-5ers who started to build their own portfolios, what they did and how they did it, so you can do it too. Tune in and transform your main job into your biggest silent investor in your real estate investment business. This is your Aid to Assets. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another amazing episode of the Aid to Assets podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Watson. Where here we interview current and former 9-to-5ers who've made the pivot into real estate investing so you can learn their stories and their strategies so you can do it too. And I'm so excited about my guest today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell the people a little bit about who you are and where you are.
My name is Tramaine, aka the 9-to-5 Landlord. I'm an accountant by day, real estate investor at night. Between me and my lady, we got about 5 buildings, which consist of, I think, 2 triplexes and 3 duplexes. So that's what we do full time outside of work.
Nice. I love it. The 9-to-5 landlord, y'all. So we're going to get all the tips and tricks of how we do this while still keeping our 9-to-5. Now, tell me, how long was it before you started investing in real estate? How long have you been in the game now?
Okay, I've been in since 2020, so this is my 4th going on 5th year.
Hold on. So 4th going on 5th year. We got 5 buildings.
Yep.
How many doors again?
I believe it's 12 or 13. I think it's 12.
Y'all, all I'm saying is you got time. You got time. Go ahead and put 4 years, 12 doors in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button. So one of the things that I was already super excited to get to talk with you because I was reading this article and I learned that the top 2 careers of real estate investors are engineers and accountants. So, yeah. So when I saw that you were an accountant, I was like, oh yeah, we about to talk about this money. This is going to be good. So tell me, prior 2019, what was life like for you?
So let me just give you my introduction to how I really got into real estate.
Okay.
So what it was is I worked in public accounting, and in public accounting, how it works is during tax season, people's taxes from January to April, and during that time, you run across all kind of people that got restaurants, people that are self-employed, lawyers, all kind of stuff. So what happened was I was doing a tax return of a guy, Schedule B, which is interest and dividends. That was like $25. I got to something else, and there was like $80. And I'm wondering, like, why are we doing his tax return? He didn't make that much money. And then I got to what's called the Schedule E, which is your real estate or your rental income for real estate. And that was like $200,000. And when I seen that, when you're doing somebody's taxes, you get all the background. So I get all the mortgage statements, all the tax statements. I see all the financials. I got to seeing the addresses because I'm in the Milwaukee area. And all the addresses were places that I drove by. I'm like, wait, I know this address. Like my auntie stayed down the street from there. And at that point, a light bulb kind of went off because I asked my manager, I'm like, yo, when you see people, because he meets the clients, I don't meet them. So I'm like, when you see these people that make this kind of money in real estate and you meet them and you realize, like, I'm smarter than them, do you ever think you could do it? And then his response was like, oh, we're accountants and they're real estate people, as if saying it wasn't like interchangeable. To where for me, I'm like, nah, I'm going to do both. So I just start diving my head into podcasts and really doing the numbers. And I'm numbers driven, so it just made more sense for me.
I love that so much. One of the, I guess, mantras you could say that I live my life by, like if I see somebody else that does it, respectfully, if you can do it, I can do it too. I just got to put the work in. Like Drake said, you just got some years on me. So, okay. So tell me about this first deal. How did we get into the game?
So yeah, how I got to the game is I think I got into it like how most first time investors get into it, where they're like, nah, I'm giving myself 18 months. Like I'm gonna stack this amount of something. And I'm gonna talk to my man, he like, nah, you probably gonna have to buy something like 6. And I'm like, nah, I'm stacking for 18 months. So what happened was my realtor, I knew it was something off market. He's like, hey, it's this triplex, you can come look at it. These are the rents. And this was 6 months into it. So I was like mad nervous. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. And I almost pulled out the deal like 8 different times. Like I got the inspection report, didn't know how to read it. I'm like, electrical what? I'm
You
out.
one of
Take
those,
it back.
right?
I'm good. I'm good. You said this what? Every problem in my head was like 20,000. I'm like, that's like 20,000. He's like, no, it's a toilet. I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? I never get on that side of the transaction. So, you know, when you're new to something, everything is like a panic. That sounds like it has to be fixed because you've never been in a position of having to fix it. So that's what it was for me. But I ended up buying a deal, and it was kind of like my best deal yet, looking back at it, like hindsight. So
Wow, that's so wonderful. And it's so funny because I'm glad that you said that, because a lot of times when we're in these new experiences, we feel like because we're panicking, that's a sign that we're supposed to stop. And it's just a sign that it's new. It's new and uncomfortable. And so having someone on your team, because listen, the first time I read an inspection report, I was like, oh, we shouldn't buy this house. And it wasn't even my house. It was a client's house. And I was like, girl, you don't want this. And then I had to actually break it down and be like, okay, let's really look and see what it's talking about. So that's so funny. Now, how did you find a realtor to even send you an off-market deal?
A friend in the family, well, it was my uncle. My uncle used to flip houses, so it was his realtor.
Okay, got it. So now, even though you said that you were giving yourself 18 months, you were still a year out when they sent you this deal. What was it that already made you start talking to people, connecting with people, telling them what your intentions were? How did that work?
It was around that time the Hive podcast, because back then I listened to a podcast about somebody who had a job, and I bought 5 buildings and now I'm retired free and all that little ish, and that had me geeked. So I'm like, F it, we going for the gusto. So I got to listen to the deal. I'm like, F it, I'm gonna do it. But the hard mentally for me, it was like going from HGTV to like real estate. That was the hardest part. So it's like as I'm reading these books, listening to about real estate, I'm watching HGTV, which is like the top glam. It's like glam for real estate because it's not real estate. So now I'm looking at these buildings and I'm like, yo, what is this? This different. Tenants looking at you, you know, they ain't the happiest people. So for me, it was just like, I'm gonna just do it. I mean, I don't know. I was scared, but I'm like, you know, I'm a risk taker. If I want to go far in life, I gotta take risks.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so since you're the numbers guy, help us understand, because for a lot of our listeners who are working, they're wanting to make this jump. The numbers can be really intimidating for them. So, from your perspective as an accountant, what are some of the most important things you considered when you were thinking about that first deal?
For me, it was mortgage payment and rent ratio. So it was a triplex. I think I was getting 800, 600, and 500, and my mortgage was going to be 1,200. So I'm like, okay, if I even move inside of one of these units, I'm still getting $1,100 in rent. I'm paying $1,200 in rent right now. So I got to come out of pocket $100. Like, boo hoo. You know what I mean? So that was my
Fact.
thing.
And then you got a triplex too for the first one. So that's so clutch, because I tell people regularly, why buy one house when you can buy 4 and it's the same process? So
Right.
duplex, triplex, quad, you applying for the same loan, but like you mentioned, you have these other units that are helping to support that one mortgage payment that you have.
So yeah. So then diving into it, I closed on the deal. Life comes at you really fast because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give myself 4 months. I'm gonna stack rents, and then I might move in. I'm gonna figure it out. And the second month, I didn't get rent from the highest paying unit downstairs. They was paying $800. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna come over here on my break. I'm just knock on her door and see what's going on. So I knocked at the door. I'm like, hey, you know, how are you? AKA, where you been? And she was like, oh, I'm moving out. And I'm like, you moving what? She's like, oh, I'm moving out. I'm like, oh, when? And she's like, tomorrow. Family emergency. And shut the door. And I'm driving back to my break after lunch, like, okay, she moving out. What do I do? You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So that Friday came. I'll go to check it. It's dark. I remember when like no lights on in the house. I'm like, hello, because you hear about those stories about like squatters and people living there, and I never did that before. So I ended up fixing that unit up over time, painting it, doing all that, and then I ended up living in there and then house hacking because the other two units was paying $1,100-$1,200.
And you get to stack the bread that you would have been paying if you were living
That's what I
somewhere
did.
else.
That's what I did.
I love it. I love it. Now, tell me this. So you bought a property that already had tenants in it. How did you feel about inheriting somebody else's tenants?
Man, I was so nervous talking to them the first day. I'm walking in there. I'm probably was stuttering. I don't even know if I said a sentence. I just know they was like, "Oh, you want rent?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, I forgot. That's what I came here for. Like, I was too nervous because you understand. You literally walk into people that's older than you. That's experienced. They just as nervous as you because the person she was asking, she's like, "You raising rent?" I'm like, "No, I ain't raising. I'm not raising rent." You know what I mean? "Oh, okay. You kicking us out?" Like, "No, I'm not kicking you out." You know what I mean? So it was mad intimidating. But after I got in the car, I'm like, man, that's the easiest little, you feel me, I ever made.
Come on. Yeah. And that's such a good point, too, that people are just as nervous as you are. So when we're stepping into these new experiences, they don't know that you don't know what you're doing. So.
They definitely didn't because I didn't know what I was doing.
That's cool. I love it. Okay. So we got the bug now. We in the first property. How did we then get from 1 to 5? Hey y'all, Tiffany here. Are you looking to purchase or sell real estate? As you know, I'm your aid to assets and I want to help you with all of your real estate endeavors. Whether you're local here like me in the Fayetteville, North Carolina area, I can then help you purchase or sell your next property. If you're looking to purchase or sell outside of North Carolina, let me know too. I can still help you. I have a team of agents all over the country that I can connect you with to partner on your next deal. Let's get to the closing table, y'all. We buy our way to wealth, whether that's buying right or selling better. Can't wait to hear from you. Click on the link in the bio if you want more information on how to personally work with me or an agent on my team. Talk to you soon.
This was January 2020, so I got my first one.
Okay.
And after that, my lady ended up getting hers about 4 or 5 months later because she was seeing what I was doing. Like, I'm gonna get her one. She got her duplex, and then COVID happened, and the crazy problem of back to that COVID, I ran into equity. Like, it was just the buyer's luck. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up getting an equity loan. I think 8-9 months later for $40,000, and then I
Come
was able to buy my
on.
second one, which I converted back to a triplex as well. It's in the inner city of Milwaukee. So yeah, that was one. But everybody told me don't buy that one though. It was in the hood.
You can't speed past that. Hold on. Wait a minute. Y'all hear that? He bought a house in January. By August, he had $40,000 he was able to pull out to then use as a down payment for another house. Once you in, you may not ever have to touch any more of your own money again. Oh my gosh, I love it. Now, did you use the whole $40,000?
The down payment and everything I got this. It was a triplex. I got it for $60,000. So with closing costs, my thing was $17,000, and then I probably used 15 of it to fix the units up so I can get market rents.
Hold on. You just said you got a triplex for $60,000.
Yeah, I got it for $60,000.
Let me find out. I need to come to Milwaukee. It's cold in Milwaukee though. The Midwest, y'all be doing some things out there. Like, oh my God, y'all. So again, if you are,
everybody told me don't buy though. It was in the the trenches. You know what I mean? All this and that. I remember the buying process was crazy. Like I had an appraisal scheduled, and the appraisal was like, I got an email back like appraisal ran out. He said somebody was inside. I'm like, well, nobody is vacant. Ain't nobody inside. But that was just the factor of that area. Like people was just like, oh no, don't you going buying over there? Like you got a gun? No, this and that. So it's just like.
So talk to me about that though. Are you from Milwaukee?
Yeah.
Okay, so born and raised. So you're comfortable. You know the city.
Yeah, I know the parts. I grew up not too far from where the property was. So I'm like, you talking to me about why I shouldn't buy it. It's like, bro, I lived there for like 4 years. So you can't tell me about the area.
I love that because a lot of times, especially now that we see there's a lot more talk about real estate, rents are not getting any cheaper. And so when we talk about buying a block, this is what we mean. Like we buy back places where we're from, where people deserve good housing, that we can still be like, we can be owners in our neighborhoods in areas where we populate and make sure people are getting taken care of.
That's a fact. That's a fact. And yeah, it's just like, even when you go to the closing table and you see the old owner wasn't black. So it's like, why y'all telling me I shouldn't buy? I'm black, but if the people I used to buy weren't black, so
And
hey,
they was
why not?
probably
I'm
had it for
partner.
years.
Years.
Exactly. Okay. Now, how are you managing? Because now because you didn't just get single family houses. So you dealing with multiple tenants per property. So we got a triplex here, another triplex. So how are you managing this? And you still got to go to work all day long and deal with these numbers at work, especially during tax season. Like,
Fam. It's this thing called lunch break. Everybody lunch break one the same as mine. I'm talking to plumbers. I'm talking to HVAC people. I'm talking back to repair people. So how it will work is talking about tenants, only text. And if I get a text, on my front end, then I'll just call somebody at my lunch break. Like, I mean, what I think I figured out quickly is that you guys be able to get to the people that can fix the stuff fast. It's not necessarily about you driving there. Like, if my tenant's toilet don't work, he don't want me to go there to look at him. He wants somebody that's gonna come and fix it. So it's for me to have somebody I can call to be like, hey, go over there and fix it. So once I established my, point of contact, whenever it was a problem, it just became me calling the person and telling the problem and to give them the tenant information and taking it from
right.
there.
Now, so it sounds like, so do you still self-manage all of your,
I self-manage all
did
of
you
mine.
ever consider a property manager?
I'm an accountant. I know the number that they're gonna charge based off of that. And then based on you, and you don't care about my property?
I love it. I love it. Putting it all in house. Okay. So now looking back 4 years later, what advice do you wish you would have told?
Don't quit your job.
Tell me more.
Don't quit your job.
What happened? There's a story behind it.
Oh,
Talk to me.
man, yeah, it's a few. It's a few. Oh my God, it was bad. So, as you said, as I told you before, I've listened to all these pods about people, firing their boss and all this and that, and they did it. So, conceptual actually here is if you make $5,000 a month from your job, the minute you should make that a real estate, you should quit because you make the same amount of money. And that's kind of ended up what I did. I didn't necessarily quit, but I wasn't as focused on my job. And to be an accountant, you have to be extremely focused. And because of that, it was a couple of tenures where I was like, let go. Where it was like, they're like, no, you're not focused. You're not really cutting it. So when they let me go, I'm like, well, I make the same money in real estate. I don't need them. And that was like one of the worst things I could have did because not only did it make it more strenuous whenever tenants would have problems as far as paying late or things breaking down, but just like mentally, it kind of wear you down extremely fast. So that's one thing I would kind of give advice as far as just like run your own route because when these people be talking about they fired their boss, you don't know what they did when they was working. They could have been working at McDonald's. Like yo, fire boss and my fire boss at the same thing. My income was going up 15% a year. You was probably at a fixed rate. You know what I mean? It's not the same thing. So I would just say establish your own lane, know the value of your career and your profession, and it's like do both. Like you can do both.
That's so good, especially because you're right. Everybody tells you we want to fire our boss, and it sounds real good. But having that additional cushion and realizing, like, what does that look like for you? I tell people often real estate is personal. And so you have to take your personal situation, your personal desires, and factor all of that in. There isn't this is a strategy that's going to work for every single person. That's not how this works at all. And I think a lot of times that uncertainty, because you have to really sit with yourself and ask yourself a lot of hard questions about what you want, that stops people from getting in the game.
Thing I've realized from people who's like on the fence looking in is they want their starting point to be so fancy when it's like, dog, start now, get fancy later. Like, oh, well, I'm looking to an LLC for what? You buying an owner occupied house. You can't even buy an LLC. So one thing I realize is they make the starting point so fancy that they don't even start. And it's like, bro, you're going to look up and you're going to be stuck. Because you got this imaginable fairy tale how you want the starting point to be when it's like, bro, just start.
Absolutely. My coach says often that it doesn't matter what it looks like right now, 5 years from now, it's going to look way better. So regardless of where you started, even if you thought you was really doing it, whatever you do 5 years later is going to be so much better. And so you might as well just go ahead and jump in.
Hey, on it. Hey, to be all the way transparent, I'm in the middle of taking equity out that same first house I bought 4-5 years ago.
What?
Yes, and a substantial amount. Where I'm really be able to make a serious
Come
move. But it's
on.
5 years later.
Y'all, so listeners, I really want you to hear this. This is what it means to be able to recycle money. We already said, so in 2020, we bought this house, this triplex for $60,000, which I'm already mad about. I'm gonna just be really honest. I'm jealous a little bit. So $60,000 in 2020. We pulled out $40,000 8 months later to buy property number 2. Now we running that play back in 2024, and we about to take some more money out of that same house to buy something else. This is why real estate creates more millionaires than any other asset class. Okay, so now you the money guys. So tell us, for those that are not as mathematically inclined, we not that structured with numbers, how do we keep this all together as we're getting these properties? Because I imagine you're really good at looking at deals, understanding what the numbers need to look like. What recommendations would you give people that are just getting started?
Hi, my name is Tiffany Watson, and I am your local neighborhood expert. Born and raised right here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, I'm very familiar with today's current market to help you best sell your home. Whether you are trying to decide what repairs you may need to make, what you should list your home to get the best profit, or how to negotiate with buyers once you promote your property, I am here to be your trusted confidant with every step of the journey. Fill out the information form below, and I'll be happy to give you a call to talk with you about the home selling process. I can't wait to serve you. Looking forward to seeing you at the closing table.
It would depend on market. One thing I would say is establish your number. Once it's your number, keep it at that. Don't add sauce on it. Because what happens is people are coming to the game.
Wait, hold on. Say that again.
Establish your number, but don't add sauce on it over time. Because what happened is January 1st, they say, I'm getting to 15,000. I get to 15,000, I'm buying me a house. June come, they got 15,000. I need 25,000. And then July comes, it's like, okay, I got 25,000. I need 40. And it's like, dog.
That is so true. And then also, I tell people the reverse too. Whatever their budget is, if you say that you want to spend X amount on a house, we should be looking at houses that cost more than that, because you're just gonna fall in love with something you can't really afford, and then you're gonna be mad, and you mad at me, like. So stick to your numbers. Stick to your numbers. Now, you mentioned the first time that you almost pulled out a couple times, thinking about everything that happened. What were some of the things that really had you second guessing yourself, and how did you keep going and not letting that fear stop you?
The first time was just, being a rookie, not, being experienced to it. But over time for me, because it's going to definitely be peaks and valleys as real estate is just my goals, and they stay there. Like, I know sometimes people start with stuff and it's like they go be, oh, I want to have this kind of life. And then they have a kid. It's like, oh, well, if I could just have this. And it's like, no, I'm keeping it right where it was. It's there for a reason. And whatever I got to do to go through it to get it, that's just what it is. It comes with the territory.
That's so good. Now, did you see the life that you're currently living? Did you see this 5 years ago?
Yes.
Really? Tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a numbers person. So when I used to run the numbers as far as on my ideal house, I would see the number and I'm like, if I can get that in the market, then I'm not waiting to get paid on Friday like everybody else to pay for their mortgage. Because that's one thing I realized is once I studied the peak of my profession, as far as like managers or people who was really in it, is two things. One, they didn't have time. And the second one, they was 100% dependent on that paycheck to fund everything around their life. And my whole thing was, I don't want to have pressure to get paid for my job in order to pay for my lifestyle. So I was like, if we can hit this in real estate as far as this amount of cash flow to be able to pay for our ideal primary, then that's what we're going to do. And that's how it turned out.
I love that. So tell us about the goals. What are some of the goals with real estate that you've set for yourself?
Bi-coastal. I got to be the lead bi-coastal. On East Coast. Sometimes people say, are you going to move here, move there? I don't know if I'm going to move or not move, but I want to have the ability to be on a flight anytime and already have a place.
I'm here for it. And the reason why I ask is because I think a lot of us really, we get to a point, just kind of like you said, like you have a baby or life happens, and then we start playing it safe. And we just think, like you said, if I can just get this, when we used to dream so big. And so I love getting to have people share what their goals are, because then it can spark someone to possibly dream bigger.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's bi-coastal, man. I need options. You know what I mean? The weather changed. I need to be able to change like the weather. So that's what it is. Man.
Oh, I love it. Okay, now you talked about your lady also got in real estate. So what was that process like, having someone so close to you also on this journey along with you?
It's dope. I mean, it's the only way I would have been able to work for me because it's like if I'm on something, I'm like extremely ambitious. So we either running, you know what I mean, or we not. So for her, she went through seeing the process with me and seeing it. She's like, I want to get one on my own. And it was like, okay, let's do it. Like I'm not one of those that's like I say a goal and then I go take a nap. It's like no, I say a goal, I get off the phone, and then I'm gonna go work on that same goal. So that's what it was.
That's so dope. I love that, especially because a lot of times people have said they have felt very alone. This is something new. They don't know people. And so letting people see that it's possible to have someone that is just as invested in this as you are, it makes the journey not feel as lonely.
No, that's a fact. That's a fact. I mean, you're still gonna feel lonely at some points because once you reach certain levels, you want to pull others around you up to those same levels, and it just over time you will see that they might not want to be as ambitious to get to those levels, and that's fine. But it's going to take experience for you to see that.
Tell us a little bit more about that, because we definitely have listeners who say, like, I want my family to do this with me, or my friends, and everybody's just not on that same path. How do you navigate that?
You just when I'm in my periods of focus, I'm focused. I'm not really trying to have conversations about too much else. So I think one thing I learned over time is just be really limiting with my time, unless it's really something I'm passionate about. Because I think oftentimes you can be focused on something. You have one phone conversation, like, oh, dog, guess what happened with so and so. Now your whole day is thrown off, your frequency off, to where it's like, if I'm locked in on something, I think somebody's gonna call me with that kind of energy, I just leave it where it's at, or follow up the next day, like, yo, you good?
That's good. Those boundaries are so important for us, especially when we are, stepping out of our comfort zone and doing something different. We got to be really particular about who we listen to, what we watching, all of that, because it's so easy. We don't even realize how things are getting in our subconscious.
For sure.
Okay. So tell me, now you in the game, you got some properties under your belt. How do you keep yourself developing as you're seeking out these goals?
How do I keep myself developing now? That's a good question. I gotta one thing I learned is you gotta approach all phases of life how you want to be. Like you can't say I want to be a great investor, but you a shitty employee.
Mm.
Like there's not a button you could turn on. And for a while I struggled with that. Like the fact that I knew what I want to do outside of work, it had me like, this shit not important because it's work. When it's like, no, it's equally as important because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So it just changes as far as my approach to everything. I want to approach everything the same way as far as really trying to be really good at it. So
That's so good. And it's so easy to get sidetracked when you see this new thing and you want to be on this new journey, to forget whatever we're doing currently. That's what got us to this point. And so we can't take that for granted.
like, man, listen, getting a check for your salary and then going back to work that same day, it's like, bro, that's tough. I just made what y'all finna pay me from now to December, and you want me to, you know what I mean? That's hard, but you got to do it.
Yeah. You got to stay focused and looking at the bigger picture. I'm a visual person, so I'm really big on having my goals written down and reviewing them, because you can be like, what, I don't need this job. Y'all, you got one time to say something to me and me. And then 2 weeks later, you like, you know what? Maybe it wasn't that big a deal.
Literally.
Because can we talk about that, though? It sounds real cool to be retired in your 30s and 40s until you realize everybody else at work all day.
I tell my friends all the time, because I'll be like, yo, your ideal life, what would you do today? They're like, oh, just go to the gym. I'm like, that's 1 hour. You got 7 hours left. What else are you doing?
What else you doing?
I would kick it with family. They at work. What else are you doing? No, I will watch a movie. Okay, that's 2 hours. You still got 6 left. So it's like, you got to think about those kind of things before you just up and hop away from the workplace. So that's what it's been for me. That's why I'm like, if I could be on different coasts, just that had me like, okay, I'm cool with being by myself for the day. Look where I'm at.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think the reimagining life, because we have been so conditioned that life needs to look one way. We go to college, we go get a job, then we get married, we have a kid, whatever. And it's like, but life can look so many different ways, but we don't actually take the time to visualize and dream. What do we want that life to look like for us? Who are we actually spending our time with? How are we spending our days if we're not in a 9 to 5 that everybody told us to get?
That's a fact. That's a whole fact.
So
It's crazy because in the workplace I fight that, but I kind of try to stay silent because you will hear so many common things like, "Oh, so and so's retiring at 55," and I'm like, "Whoop-de-doo, I hope I'm," you know what I mean?
yes,
But you don't say nothing. It's
yes.
just like, okay, cool. You just let it slide. So,
Because they're gonna look at you crazy, like, what are you talking
look at you.
about? So absolutely. I have learned the hard way. Let me just say less. Okay, so what is that in for you though? Do you see yourself not doing a full-time 9 to 5 at some point soon? Or what are you
Yeah.
thinking about that?
So for me, one thing I learned in the past is the concept was originally financial freedom, whereas like I said, if you make $5,000 a month, you make $5,000 outside your job, leave, keep the same lifestyle. But what I've learned for me is I need what's called luxury freedom, where it's like I was making this at work, but I'm making this outside of work passively. So now I can really live life and kind of really be creative on my own terms. And for me, I definitely see myself getting there within the next 5 to 10 years.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So before we wrap up, one of the things that we love to do on the show is to set some intentions. So when we go back and watch this a year from now, 3 years from now, what's going to be true for you and your business?
In the next 3 to 5 years,
Yeah.
10 properties, 5 of them paid off, over $1 million liquid in the market.
Come on. One of my favorite things when I get to ask that question is I have yet to have a guest on the show that can't tell me clearly what it is. And so listeners, I really want y'all to see and hear that you don't get your goals on accident. Like that's just not how this works. And so being very specific, knowing what you want, because it's too easy to drift. And so staying locked in literally means staying locked in, but you have to know, what am I locked in on and where am I going? And so you hear that. That's an amazing goal. I know you're going to do that in even less time. That's not even a question. But thank you so much for your time today. I'm so grateful to have you here.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. I had a good time.
Absolutely. Sure. Now tell the people where they can follow you on social media so we can learn about these $60,000 triplexes and stuff.
Okay. You can follow me on Instagram at 925landlord, 9TO5 landlord.
Love it. And so y'all, that will be linked in the description. So definitely tap in, show him some love for his time today. And you got the accountants on the team. We learning the accountants and the engineers. They out here making some stuff happen. Y'all, this has been another amazing episode of the Aid to Assets podcast. Can't wait to see you at the closing table. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to another insightful episode of Aid to Assets. Remember, your journey from 9 to 5er to successful real estate investor is within reach. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep investing in your future. If you'd like to know more, connect with me on Instagram at Aid to Assets. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Until